Okay, let's take a look for a couple of minutes at why rhythm is important in literature. I'm going to focus here on poetry in English. I'm not going to be talking about iambic pentameters and dactylic hexameters. We'll save that for our lessons. We'll save that for another day. This is just some general rules and reasons why rhythm is something that we should focus on in any kind of literary realism. First of all, some notes. We should aim to see the difference between a rhythm that is expressive and that has positive, meaningful and subtle function and a rhythm that has been adopted solely for its musical value. Okay, what exactly do we mean by this? Essentially what we mean by this is that we're avoiding the kind of rhythm that one sees inside the birthday cards and anniversary cards and the sorts of rhythm that that is overly regular, as we say in this next slide, where it's just da-dum, de-dum, 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 where it doesn't necessarily add anything to the actual expression of emotion that D.H. Lawrence talks about being so important in the criticism or the feeling of emotion, what emotion has been drawn from the reader in the literature. Essentially, what this regular, repeated rhythm does, that we have in what I call these nursery rhyme cards, is that any real emphasis is omitted of words given by the quality and the pressure of the emotion and the thought behind the words. So you can't emphasize anything in this. It's just a general sense of this relentless rhythm. And we're going to use various different examples through this. This shouldn't, as we say, be a jingle, hickory-dickory-dock kind of rhythm, ideally, in literature. Here's our first one. This is Dryden. This is Dryden talking about the loss of Damon. Pause it, take a look at it for a second. What we have to do when we're taking a look at this is see obviously the rhythm and indeed the rhyme, which we'll talk about at a later date, and say, what effect does the rhythm have on this? Hope is banished, joys are vanished, Damon, my beloved, is gone. If one's beloved is genuinely gone, I would suggest that this form of rhythm is not necessarily appropriate to express the loss that one would have for someone that you've loved. Dum de dum dum, dum de dum dum, dum de dum 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 dum. This is not appropriate devastation, I think. How much of a sense of loss do we feel here from Dryden? Okay, this next one we may remember from The Simpsons. Take a look at this, see if you can remember it. It is Edgar Allan Poe in The Raven. A wonderful poem. So pause this for a second, look through this, and then we'll go through it. Okay, now far be it from me to be dismissive of Edgar Allan Poe, but how much does this rhythm reflect the loss of Lenore? Distinctly I remember, it was the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Now, you could perhaps say that the rhythm suggests being carried away perhaps by the grief, but is this again appropriate for this true sense of loss for his beloved Lenore? The dum-de-dum-dum-dum-de-dum-dum-dum-de-dum-dum-dum-de-dum, this sort of rhythm, how much of a sense of loss and devastation and grief is achieved through this rhythm? I'm going to ask you now to take a look at another poem, and this one is by John Donne. Now this poem, this is written about the loss of his lover. Pause it for a second, see if you find anything different in this poem, in the rhythm. Okay, so first of all, let's think, how does the rhythm reflect the meaning in this poem? Look at how quiet the first line is. The St. Lucy's Day that we talk about here is the shortest day of the year. 'Tis the year's midnight, and it is the day's Lucy's. You have this very quiet start. This is this man that's lost his loved one during the darkest day of the year. desperately writing, lonely, devastated. Look at how quiet this first line is again. "'Tis the year's midnight, and it is the day's Lucy's." You'll notice here we're not being carried away by the rhythm. The rhythm isn't dictating the meaning or the emotion. It simply adds to it. There's no emphasis in this first line. There's no emphasis until we get to Lucy's. Look, in our way that we see in Latin, the emphatic position. We do have emphasis on that after the quiet of the first line. "'Tis the year's midnight, and it is the day's Lucy's." We now have this emphasis, both in sound and position, on Lucy's, stressing its importance to him. Look at this next bit. Following on from this Lucy's, you have the pause, "whose scarce 7 hours herself unmasks." What does this reflect? This reflects the sun. This pause here. I guess we have to pause because of the sibilant S sound, even. Scarce 7. And we obviously have the comma pausing us. So here, it's reflecting the sun struggling to actually come up. Look at line 4. "Send forth light squibs, no constant rays." Every word is stressed here. Every word is stressed. Every syllable except one. This emphasizes the depths of the poet's despair. He is absolutely distraught. Look at the no rays, no constant rays, the no rays. There is no light. There is no light in his life. Look then at the slow, heavy 5th line. "The world's whole sap is sunk." The 6th and 7th starts to get a little bit faster, and then is suddenly slowed down by "shrunk, dead, and interred." These 3 terms reflecting the loved one's body, as well as the nature of life itself, the human condition, that is without any happiness for him, without any joy. We do have the lighter tone as we have laugh, dead and interred, yet all these seem to laugh. We think maybe things are getting a little bit better in the rhythm. Yet all these seem to laugh. Compared with me, who am their epitaph. It's wrenched away by the emphasis on the small word am. He is the man recording this. Look again at the difference in the rhythm between this poem by John Donne and the previous 2 poems. First of all by Dryden, then by Poe. And consider my advice of reading with your ears.